Welcome to episode 65 of the Distorted Dialogue podcast, where I have Pete from the Chicago-based band Bloodletter swinging by to tell me all about their 2025 album, Leave the Light Behind, which was one of my favorite albums this year. We talk about the writing process, influences, playing live, what's in store for 26, and so much more. I want to thank Pete for swinging by. Had a great time. Also, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss anything coming up. Thanks for watching. Stick around. Well, hey, this is Pete from Bloodletter, one of my favorite bands from 2025 that I discovered. Welcome to the Distorted Dialogue podcast on the Metal Institute of Thrashology.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Dude, thanks for the sounds, dude. Like, that was an amazing album, and I was just listening to it again. It's so damn good.
I appreciate that. That one was a real labor of love and many other emotions. Was a tough one to finish, but I'm glad that it came together the way it did. But yeah, glad you're enjoying it.
I went back and listened to your entire catalog last night. And I thought that maybe Leave the Light Behind was like maybe one of the easiest records for you to put out. And that would have been my guess because it just flows. And like as your catalog was flowing, like I could tell like everything was improving. The writing was improving, the riffs were improving, the production. And then you got to Leave the Light Behind and it just rocked. And I was like, man, this probably was just flowed right out of them like easy as could be. But I guess it wasn't the case.
No, like... So we, like many other bands these days, I'm sure, we're lucky to be in the realm and the era of great technology. Making records has gotten a lot easier. And, I cut my teeth, as a teenager working in a studio in my neighbor's basement. Then I was a drum tech and an assistant engineer and then an engineer at a real studio here in the city. And I went to school for sound design and all that stuff. And I work at one of the biggest audio brands in the world. And, I'm an engineer there. So like, I'm always in this stuff. So like my ears were there. And as we started to keep, like writing more grandiose arrangements and more tunes together, like that part came together. But I think it just like mentally, it was the hardest one, like for me to finish. I do a lot of the songwriting and the guys will write with me. And, Pat, our other guitarist, will write tunes, and Tanner and Zach will write in on arrangements and, send ideas, and we all just kind of put it all together. But man, being in a band 12 years is hard, and like, bands that stick around forever and ever and ever, they're amazing. The discographies, the work ethic, the everything, but the last 2 years were tough on old car parts' noggin here, I'm just like, man, this was a tough one. But the days that were good were great, and the days that were bad were awful. But our drummer Zach, he had the title kind of picked out like a couple of years ago, and it sounded like a good idea, for the title. And then as the songs lyrically started to come together, I was like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like thematically, it just kind of clicked. And once everything fell into place, it was like massive sigh of relief, shoulders, the weight off the shoulders is there. But when we recorded stuff together, it was really good. But then just like, sitting and you listen and you go back and you make little changes and you record something else and do that. That was like the big part for me. Was just like, it took months to finish recording, whereas previously it was like we spent months writing and then like 2 weeks recording everything. This time we recorded a song at a time along the way. So it's tough, but rewarding, I guess.
So did you guys start writing like right after A Different Kind of Hell?
Pretty much, yeah. That's kind of how we've always been. I'm probably the most manic, and I mean, I don't want to sound like an arrogant dick here and say prolific, but like of a lot of my friends and people that I know, like I will sit down, like I could sit on the drum kit right over here with an idea and play it a song all the way through without even having guitar or bass or whatever, and then record stuff to it. And that's kind of how like a lot of the songs in the beginning for the band came together.
Yeah.
But right around the time we were finishing A Different Kind of Hell, we had think it was like 5 songs that were like kind of getting formulated, like halfway there.
Okay.
And then musically, Pat and I were hanging out and like writing a bunch of stuff. And then Zach would come and we'd send stuff to Tanner. Tanner would come in, we'd all listen and everything. And we're like, yeah, that's a good idea. Like maybe we can turn it into this or that or the other. But like, yeah, like I'd say within a month of a different kind of hell being released, we probably had like half a record musically done.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're not really good at taking breaks from writing stuff. If it's there, you just go.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, like it sounds like you could take like any song from any album basically and put it together. The only thing that really changed was like the intricacies of some of the writing became like a lot more like technical, which I'll definitely take. But I love the melody in it, just the little bits of melody. It's not enough to water it down, but riff after riff of just metal I'll take.
Yeah, man.
So where do you
Appreciate
guys,
that.
yeah, where do you guys get your influences from? Because I was listening last night and I heard a little bit of like Maiden in there, and I was like, I don't know, doesn't sound like a Maiden type album though, but I'll take the tone.
I mean, the biggest ones for us, I mean, like if you asked all 4 of us, and we were asked this probably like right around when Funeral Hymns came out. So like late 2020 and early 2021, because we had 2 different releases of that one. Um, right around then, we were asked, like who were the biggest bands for us? And like, we all have our different preferences and like we all have different bands, that we really love. But if you asked us like, could you name 3 or 4 bands or 4 or 5 records, that are probably the most influential? And we would all agree that Ritual from the Black Dahlia Murder, like all 4 of us agree, like that is 10 out of 10, no notes, perfect record. But we're not a death metal band, but we love like Swedish death metal stuff. Like At the Gates is a huge influence for us. Slaughter of the Soul is just like a god tier record. But we also all love Iron Maiden. We love harmonized guitar riffs. We jokingly say, a riff is better twice, so play it harmonized. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
Maiden, At the Gates, Creator is kind of like that perfect mix of like, are they a thrash band or are they a melodic thrash band? You can't really tell because they're just so fast and aggressive all the time. And I love that band. So it's like, yeah, Creator, At the Gates, Black Dahlia Murder, Iron Maiden. And we all love Thin Lizzy. I mean, I got the Black Rose tattooed here on my hand because like that's kind of where it all started. Like without them, you wouldn't, like Steve Harris from Iron Maiden has said, if it weren't for Thin Lizzy, we wouldn't have had the guitars the way they were. And like, who did it better? Like they're the best damn rock and roll band, in my opinion. So like those dudes, then Maiden, then we'd put, Black Dahlia Murder, Creator, At the Gates. Pat and I are, I mean, pretty much everybody in the band, we're all big Exodus fans too.
Oh, that's my
For some of the
favorite
faster
band, man.
stuff. Yeah, they're like, if you can listen to Shovel-Headed Kill Machine, just the song, and not stand up and start swinging and punching holes and stuff, like I don't know how you do that, because like it's just they're the best, and controversial, but Rob Dukes is the best front man that band has ever had. I will die on that hill. I love Zetro, Bailoff, all those dudes, but like Rob Dukes is just this menacing force, and he's so good as a front man for that band. So
I
yeah, they're up there
disagree
too.
with you though. I'm gonna go with Bailoff only because I just listened, not yesterday, but the day before. I went back. Somebody asked me what my favorite 3 live albums were, and
Okay.
I was trying to like decipher which ones. And so I went back and listened to another Lesson in Violence when they were
Oh
live in
yeah.
2008, and Bailoff is just yelling crazy ass shit out like "I love heavy" in the middle of the song, and you're like, "That's great," like that's what I like. It's fun.
they're
Bob
they're
was a
all
beast.
they're all great frontmen, and you're right. Bailoff was nuts in that, like, kind of, you can't really like, you don't teach that. You kind of just have that in you, and
Yeah.
like they're all great, and they all had great, records within the band. But for me, it's like, I don't know. There's just something about like Temple of the Damned and Shovel-Headed Kill Machine where I'm just like, this is what it should be in my head. Like it just kind of clicked.
Yeah.
But yeah, those bands, At the Gates, Exodus, Creator, Black Dahlia Murder, Iron Maiden. I mean, like we all liked Slayer and
Yeah.
like there's just so many other bands. We're like we all like punk music and
Yeah.
hardcore stuff. There's like a bunch of little things that come from all over the place, but um
I
yeah, those are
feel
probably the big ones.
I feel in your earlier albums like Bloodletter, the self-titled, like
Mm,
you could feel more of a punk feel to
yeah,
it, especially
yeah,
with the production too.
yeah. We that was shit 10 years ago
Yeah.
now, which is crazy to say out loud. But like that one, we recorded that one with our original lead guitar player, Jason, as one of our best friends of the band. Um, we recorded that one basically in my room when I moved back in with my mom and his apartment, and like recorded drum sounds, played them in on an electronic drum kit, and like did all the guitars direct and like all that stuff. Um, and like we kind of just wanted like a grittier, kind of like more just raw sound on that one, and that would kind of just came together that way. But yeah, we were just listening to so many different tunes and like bands and albums and all that stuff at the time, and yeah, there was a lot of really good punk music coming out around then too. I'm a huge Bad Religion fan. They're one of my favorite bands in the world, and yeah, to say that that doesn't work its way into the band's DNA like even a little bit is crazy because like punk music rules, and
Yeah, it does.
you got to get that the speed got to come from somewhere, man. And so that was yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah, I haven't thought about that record in that way in a while, but that's definitely the most I think punk one we've got, or punk influenced one we've got for sure.
Yeah. So when you were talking about Creator, are you more of a fan of like the 80s Creator when it was just face melting thrash? Because I was just talking to Greg Kennelty from Metal Injection, like we
Mm-hmm.
were messaging back and forth, and he was saying that he likes the newer Creator, which I prefer, like Hate Uber Alice
Oh
and
yeah, great
like
record.
even though they slowed it down, they didn't lose any of their like nastiness. Like they're still just
They
brutal, just at a different way.
they've got so much just venom in them. Like I couldn't think of a different way to say that, but man, like Enemy of God and Hordes of Chaos, Hey
Yeah,
Uberalis, like I'm stoked for the newest record. I can't
me
wait for it.
too.
But like they just like I think like late 90s into the 2010s, up till now, like really, I think the idea of the big four, it shouldn't have been permanent membership. I think like it should have been like the Premier League. Like you could get relegated if you have too many bad records.
Yeah,
Cause like for me, like Exodus and Creator have just been eating everybody's lunch,
yeah.
the last 10 years, and just yeah, later Creator for sure. But like I still love the 80s stuff. Don't get me wrong, but like
Right.
Enemy of God and Hordes of Chaos, like I probably went through 2 or 3 copies of each of those on CD. I played them so much, like on repeat.
I can
Um,
now that you say it, like the 2023, A Different Kind of Hell, and then
mm,
Leave the Light Behind. Like you can almost feel like that. I don't want to say mid-tempo because you guys aren't mid-tempo, but like
mm,
it's a little bit slower than like the thrash of Exodus or just straight speed. But I like yours because you can just settle into a groove
mm.
and like there's just enough melody to keep like you flowing, but there's still enough heaviness to just make you want to pummel someone, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like there's only so many ways you can put a song together, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so many beats, there's so many grooves or rhythms, and so many guitar sounds and things like that. And I think for me, struggling with like some combination of ADD, depression, and anxiety all at the same time, like
Yeah.
my attention span suffers dramatically if I'm not interested in something. And so like I'm like, okay, I have to write a song that would keep my attention all the time, and it's like I guess what it really boils down to is like groove and feel are so hard to like you can't formulate that. You kind of just have to like you play a riff, and if it feels right, it. You just kind of have that feel to it, and our guitarist Pat is like the fucking king of that shit. He's so good at like, and again, I'm biased, but he's like probably the best guitar player that nobody talks about. He has such a unique approach to writing and playing. It's so refreshing. Like I'd sit down next to him and I'd play a riff one way and he'd play the same thing, but his picking hand and his dynamics just kind of like change how it would ebb and flow. And I'm like, that's how we have to record this part. And yeah, Different Kind of Hell and Leave the Light Behind definitely had a little more swing, a little more bounce to them in certain spots because the songs just kind of came together that way. And, you know, Pat and I would sit down and play a lot of the parts, and there's that give and take, that ebb and flow. You know, I'm more straightforward, like attacking my instrument, and Pat's got way more finesse and way more feel. But I don't think it's like a coincidence. I think those two records definitely, like, we intentionally were like, yeah, let's try and be a little more varied, like a little more, you know, a little more sense of theater, a little more dramatic delivery in some of these tunes. Like we don't just have to go, there's nothing wrong with going 200 miles an hour,
Right.
10 songs in a row. Trust me. But, you know, like the feel, the groove, the thing, like it can really like build a sense of, and something that we talk about all the time, like suspense. Like you don't want, like, you don't know what's coming in the next scene of the movie, or you don't know what's around the next turn. And the not knowing is kind of the most thrilling part of the experience. So you kind of, you know, you change those things up a little bit along the way. It keeps things interesting.
I was talking to a couple of my buddies on Threads, and like I was trying to come to a conclusion between you guys and Grave Ripper for the album of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just sort of like Grave Ripper has a little bit of groove, not much, but you guys had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of groove. And I enjoyed the groove of your album better, but I found that the groove comes from the guitar in
Mm-hmm.
your album, whereas most bands, the groove comes from the low end.
Right.
And like it's just coming from the guitar, both you and Grave Rippers, like the little bit of melody coming from, or a little bit of a groove coming from the guitar. Like I think because it came from the guitar, grabbed me more because it's almost like a more aggressive groove. But like while you're in that groove, you're feeling the aggression coming from the guitar. It's not like a soulful groove. It is soulful, but like that's not what it's intended to be. It has some sort of aggression in it. And it,
It
man, it really grabbed me.
it's like an unctuous kind of thing, like undulating, like you don't
Yeah.
know if it's up or down, left or right, back or forward, you know, like it just kind of has a like a swing. I don't know how else to describe
Yeah,
it, but I
yeah.
think you're right. Yeah, we do really lean on the guitars to do a lot of the talking for the band. And yeah, I think that kind of sense of groove, as you know, like, yeah, you nailed it, like because like obviously I wrote a lot of the record and I'm looking at it from that point of view, but like hearing someone else go like, yeah, but this is how the groove is communicated, I'm like, oh yeah, that's tight. Thank
Yeah.
you for thinking of it that way.
Yeah, I try to like before I interview anyone, like I try to get really like yours was easy, but like I really try to get familiar with like the album, the song, the discography, and
Mhm.
and so it's nice when like I interviewed this doom band called Crop, if you're unfamiliar with them.
I've heard of them, but I haven't really listened to them much. I'm sorry.
They have a great album out from last year called SSRI, and I'll send it over to you. And I
Sure.
interviewed them, and I had like all these thoughts. It was like a very weighted, like they had like a heartbeat to start off the album, and then all these
Oh,
song
cool.
titles. And I was like, oh man, these song titles must mean this. And so when you're talking to them, you think you have this like deep you think you discovered this deep thing, and they're like, nope, that's just the string gauge we use, or something like that. And you're like, oh man, I thought this was this emotional album, but
Hmm.
so it's nice that like for you to confirm like what I heard and felt too. Like I feel like I connected with the music more that way then.
Well, I'm glad that's how you felt about it, because you know, like you try to write a record, you try to make, you know, a coherent thing, you know, like
Yeah.
a cohesive thing, excuse me, and you want it to be attention grabbing. You want it to have a sense of, you know, aggression and um you know, some attitude and, you know, like some unction. You know, you want like some dramatic epic moments too, you know. And how many of each or how much of each you put in, you know, everybody's recipe is going to be different. But um you know, sitting with these tunes for as long as I did, you know, like I'd like record a rhythm part on the guitar one way, and then I'd listen back to it, and Maybe it could be a little different here. I don't know. Maybe I could have played it better. Maybe I could have added a little more dynamics or something, and then you finally like get the whole picture for the song. And then it's like, okay, cool. And then you start piecing the scenes together in the greater picture, and then it makes the album. Um, but yeah, it was kind of like a conscious thing, but to add that kind of groove and that attitude, but it was more like a where is it going to come up on the record, and that part
Yeah.
was, you got to let that happen organically for sure.
So do you do most of the rhythms and Pat does most of the leads, or is it balance duties,
it
or
it changes. Like, so I always tell everybody Pat's our lead guitar player because he could play the same damn thing 100 times out of 100 perfectly. He's so good. I am more like the, yeah, I might get it right kind of guy. But like when it comes to the recording side of things, like, Pat and I will like work on solos together. And sometimes it's like he'll sit next to me and I'll be like, any ideas? He's like, nah. We sit there for a couple minutes and I'm like, what about something like this? And then he goes, oh, this. And it just works instantly. And then he can rip it in a couple of takes. He's done.
yeah.
Me, it takes like a month to write a solo I like. Sometimes I'll get one really quick, but I don't know. It's kind of like I have to have the idea and run with it. I'm more of like momentum oriented on that part. But like Pat and I trade solos on a handful of songs. Like one of my favorites to play live is The Howling Dead off A Different Kind of Hell, because I do the first couple of bars, then Pat does the next. And then we come in together and do the whole harmonized thing. And we did that again on a couple of tracks, on different records and all that. But I really think it started to get more level. Pat had more on the last record, I think. A Different Kind of Hell, I think I had as many solos as he did. And A Different Kind of Hell, or I'm sorry, Funeral Hymns, Pat had a few. We had some friends do some cameo solos and stuff. Um, yeah, it's kind of gotten more even, but I definitely and will admit that for the live set, I'm like, yo, Pat, this set list has got a lot of your solos. Cool. And he's like, why? Sometimes he's like, but you can do them too. And I was like, yeah, but you're not doing vocals too, buddy.
So
Like,
and that I was just gonna ask you that because I remember growing up in the 80s, everybody had defined roles. Like you
mhm,
were the lead guitarist, the singer was the singer, like Hetfield and you
sure.
know, Kirk Hammett. And then you like when I talk to bands nowadays, especially like more of the underground bands where you really enjoy their sound.
Mhm.
And it's sort of like we just kind of do whatever we want, and Pat will have this, and then maybe I'll do this,
Yeah.
and it's kind
That's,
of I think that chemistry is what makes such a great product.
yeah. I mean, like, there are parts on some songs that I know for sure, like, I can't play live if I'm doing like coming into a part with vocals and like a tough, like a tricky kind of riff, and then jump right into a solo. If I don't have to do vocals along with it, yeah, I'll take it. But Pat, really, like, he and I have kind of developed this like cohesive, like, I'll wash you dry kind of attitude live, where like he and I just kind of look over at one another like, you're good, like we're checking with eye contact, and then we just go into the next part. And if it's a trading solos thing or it's him and I'm doing rhythm, I don't know, but it's more fun, like, and interesting, and it'll keep you on your toes, like, if you're not playing, like just the rhythm parts, maybe do some leads and so forth. Like we try to keep that at least interesting. But for like the big, flashy, like technically badass solos, like, yo, Pat's the guy. But every now and then I might have a couple of good notes here or there. I don't know. I just tell everybody Pat's our lead guitar player though, because one, he's got the hot pink guitar. Two, he's got the fucking hair to back it up. And three, and most importantly, he's got the hands, Mike. He's got the hands. He's so good.
Yeah.
He's so
Well,
good.
I hope you guys come to Pittsburgh or somewhere close so I could hopefully catch you guys in
We
that
would
bright pink guitar.
we would love to, man. We had plans to get out to Pittsburgh a couple of years ago. We had a tour coming together, and then this was right when the numbers with COVID and, like, I think it was the Omicron variant started to like really creep back up, and people were like, we probably shouldn't have hundreds of people in clubs all the time. And the promoter we were working with out that way, like 3 of the shows fell through, and then it was like, well, we can't make that worth it to go out that way. So we ended up doing like a smaller, like more selective run of shows at that time.
Yeah.
But we'd love to get back out, on the road at some point this year. I think the break that I imposed on the band, because like I really needed one, just for my old noggin, gave me a lot of time to think about like what's the most important for the band, like for me specifically, but like what goals I have, what things I still want to do, and what I want to do next with the band. And yeah, like we got to get back out on the road, and we got to play shows, and we got to get to places we haven't been, and would love to hit up Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a
Yeah.
fun town.
Yeah, definitely. And anything I can do to help you guys out to come here, well, let's
Yeah.
go.
You let me know. You let
Yeah,
me
for
know.
sure. And that's what I was talking to Corey from Grave Ripper maybe
Mhm.
like a month or two ago, and I was like, dude, you gotta scoop up Bloodletter, pick up Bastard Cross out of
Mhm.
Philadelphia, and Bloodletter, man, that would be a top 3. You guys on a tour, that would be a hell of a lineup, man.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I mean, we toured with the Grave Ripper guys back in 2023. We did was like a self-booked like 8 or 9 day run with those dudes. And it was fun. We had a great time. And then, we put out our records pretty much around the same time in 2023, had records come out in 2025. We both do our sounds differently, but like we would love to do that. If they're down to do it, we'd be down to do it. If, the right route can come together and the schedules align, yeah, man, we could
Well,
do it.
I feel bad for Corey from Grave Ripper because I'm gonna be hounding the shit out of him to get you guys to come here.
No, he's a grown man. He can handle it. Just hound away. He can handle it.
Yeah.
He's strong. He can
So
do it.
how did COVID affect you guys, being that you started like a couple years before, but I mean your second release came out, 2018, and then 2020 probably had to slow down your progress a bit.
Yeah. So like we really kind of got our start 2013. I had been working on a bunch of stuff in 2012. Then Zach came into the picture, and then Tanner and Jason, and then a few years go by, and Pat joins the band, and Under the Dark Mark, our first proper LP was out, and we played a shitload of shows on that record. Like 2018 through 2020 was just like, I think it was close to 100 shows in like 2 years. Like we were all over the damn place, dude. Um, and then COVID hit, and we had some amazing support from a handful of our friends that wanted to help us press funeral hymns. And we pressed the record at a plant here in Chicago called Smashed Plastic. Royalty gods of the vinyl industry, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
And then we got scooped up by the farm team label for Hammerheart Records out of the Netherlands. This label called Petrichor Records. And without getting too far into the details, the A&R guy royally fucked us. We were graciously let out of our contract by the owners at Hammerheart because all of the promises that we were made, none of them got delivered on. The streaming delays, the international distribution delays, the everything. And combine that with a global pandemic stopping touring, like I really feel like, like our social media traffic was ramping up, in anticipation of the record. People were really excited to hear it. We had played a bunch of shows. We were playing new tunes, and then everything got shut down.
Yeah.
And we did our best, like, a bunch of other bands, like trying to like stay at home, like try not to go to a lot of places, avoid getting sick, of course, all the socially like conscious things you try to do when you're not trying to get a bunch of other people sick, and like people are getting sick and venues are suffering. So we finally get to a point where we can get back on the road, and we did Full Terror Assault. We did a short run of shows, and did as much as we could. But I really feel like the pandemic like really did throw a wrench in a lot of people's gears, like you build up so much momentum and then you just come to a halt. Like that hurts. Like that's really hard. But
Yeah.
I think all of the pent up aggression from not being able to get out on the road kind of like came through on a different kind of hell. And then, Sean over at Wise Blood took a chance on us with our Malignancy EP, and he loved it, and it sold really well for him. And he's like, you know what? You guys were cool. I loved making friends with you guys. And that's the most important part of working with Sean, is that like, he's the nicest fucking guy on the planet, and we love
Yeah.
him to death. And he's like, yeah, I'll put out your full length. And it sold, and it did great. And then we got on the road and we played a ton of shows on that one. And then, we started working on Leave the Light Behind. And it's funny because like, there wasn't a global pandemic. Like, we played shows, we had tours fall through. We tried booking 3 different tours for 2025. 2 of them were financially like, we can't risk taking 2 weeks off of work and
Sure.
going all this way out, and like not making money. Like, I can work from the road. That's part of my job. The other guys can't, and like our bassist has a family, and, our guitarist Pat has a home, and like, you gotta pay for stuff. And if you're not making the money, like, it's hard to do. But, we played the shows that we could, but then, in the summer of 2025 was when like my brain was just like, nah, you're seeing too many things that are making you anxious or upset within the industry. And my self-confidence as a result of that just hit a pit. And it was like waking up every day feeling like I just got off a roller coaster. Like, my stomach was just all over the place, and I just couldn't find the will and the drive and the desire to play in front of an audience was just gone, like completely gone. And there were, some days, over the last few months where I was like, you know what, if Leave the Light Behind was the last thing this band ever did, I'd be okay with it. I really would. But now, that kind of self-imposed break, not kind of, definitely self-imposed break, just kind of like gave me a lot of time to reflect and look toward, like other things the band can do. And, I feel like there's still a lot we can do. And, if people want us around, like, we'll be around. We just got to make sure that all of the people, much like yourself, all suddenly go, wait, oh yeah, we want that band around.
Yeah.
So we gotta shove the record in their face and be like, you need to listen to this thing, and we'll be there, so we'll see. We're in early talks with our friend and manager and booking guy, and just trying to like figure out like what we can do and what the schedule will look like. We'll probably, I hope, start around spring, give us some time to rehearse a shitload and really, get the ball rolling. But yeah, I think so. I think it'll
pumped, man.
be fun. We'll get out to Pittsburgh. You help us out there. We'll get our asses out there. We can do it. We can do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you took the time to like reflect and like, because I think too, maybe if you didn't do that, you would have burnt yourself out, or maybe like you just wouldn't be as hungry this year, and maybe the tour wouldn't be as successful. But about your self-doubt, like everybody I've talked to about your album says it's phenomenal, man. So the key thing is you just got to get people to hear it. Once they hear it,
Yeah. That's the thing, man. And I think like, everybody deals with, confidence and self-esteem issues
sure.
differently. But like, like, we're all adults, like, we're all people, like, we all got our problems, we all got things that, we can work on. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey, it's the process, like. And I think for me it was just like, I don't know where like my brain went, being like a person that, his depression does this, like sometimes I'm riding a fucking high for months on end.
Yep.
Sometimes it's, pits and darkness and all that crap. But I think, for somebody who's written so much music about like really terrifying shit, like, I'm probably like the biggest sap, and like, just like, I'm giving my friends hugs, little forehead kisses, high fives. How the fuck are you doing? Like, just trying to be a positive person. But, I think it's hard when like burnout's there and like you're just like grinding and grinding away. And I think it was primarily because I sat with the record for so long myself. I got the studio here at home, and I'm listening to it every day and thinking, is this good enough? And then that kind of like spiraled more stuff. But, I think time to shelve the negative thoughts and get back to
Yeah,
riffing and having some
there's a
fun, man.
ton of positive in that, bro. And I was talking to Brandon yesterday from Morbid and Miserable, and we had
Brandon.
man, what a great dude. And
Yeah.
yeah, like he was like, "Oh, this is just fun for me." And I was like, "Man, it seems like a lot of work." But I was having the same talk with him as far as like I'm just some dude who sits in this room by himself and puts together some videos and try to help some people out. But I
Hmm.
wonder, like, is there things I could do better? Or like, is there a
Hmm.
different avenue? So me and Brandon talked a little bit about that afterwards yesterday, and like you said, I think I'm on a good path. I did a little bit of reflecting because it's the year end to a new
Sure.
year, and tried to, like you, I revamped some things, and let's fucking go.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta take the step back, however short or long that might be, and then you can kind of, get the bigger picture, and focus on what you can do, what you can change, and how you can learn and grow. And I've been trying to keep that process in mind for every record the band has done, because being the guy that writes a lot of the stuff, but also we record everything in my home studio and I mix pretty much everything. And then we discuss all the artwork within ourselves. And like, we don't do big production budget stuff. Like the band funds itself, the band runs itself, the band does everything for itself, with the exception of like printing shirts and
Sure, sure.
mastering the record. I have a dear friend of mine master our stuff, but beyond that, it's like, you end up putting in the work, and everybody, if there's one thing I could tell everybody about this band, is that we have always put the work in. There
Yeah.
are no shortcuts. We've never been given a shortcut. We have earned everything the hard way. Every little bit we've ever gotten, we've earned the hard way. And we are so grateful, because without the opportunities and blessings we've been given from, like, Sean at Wise Blood, like touring with the guys, when we asked Grave Ripper to do the tour with us back in 2023, the fact that they were like, sure, let's do it, like, was genuinely a surprise for us. Like the fact that we've been able to play the shows we've played, or the fact that like we own our own fucking trailer and like we run our own in-ear mixes at shows, and like we have the gear, we have the opportunities, or we've had the opportunities, we've had the relationships. Like, we're just four nerds that like playing heavy music, and we've always tried to put all the work we can in, because no shortcuts, like nothing's guaranteed. You shouldn't be given everything, on a silver platter. Like, you got to earn it. So,
Maybe that's why
staying on that.
maybe that's why your catalog is so tight and so strong together.
You are too kind. You are too kind,
Dude,
man.
I don't know. I just really fucking leave the light behind grabbed me this year. And
Mm.
like as soon as I heard it, it was like I couldn't stop listening to it. And I was like, come on, man, I'm behind in shit now? But hey, I hate to cut this short. We only got
No,
two
bro.
minutes left, dude, and
Oh
I'm
yeah, you
having
got it. You
such
got
a
it.
blast.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for coming by, man, and
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to thank you so much for the riffs, dude, and hope, anything I can do in the future to help you guys out, dude. I'd love to.
Be in touch. We'll see if we can get our asses out to Pittsburgh in short order, man. We'd make that happen.
Fuck yeah, dude.